So now the next topic we are going to talk about is stateless and the stateful authentication, right? So first of all, stateful authentication that is divided into a couple of parts, like session-based authentication. And so what happens in a session-based authentication? Let's talk about it. So server creates a session and it stores the session once the user logs in. A session ID generated and sent back to the client, usually in the cookies. So client include that session ID or the cookies in each and every request. Server validate it. This session can also be stored in the memory, in the Redis, in the database. So what really helps? How it really works? User logs in, credentials are sent to the server. Server verify the credentials, create a session and stores it. Session sends the session ID to the client. Client include the session ID in the subsequent request. Server validate the session ID before granting the access. So this is like a stateful authentication using session based. It is more secure, data remain on the server, easier to revoke access by just deleting the session in the Redis or storage. It works well with the internal or a monolithic architecture. Now let's talk about stateless authentication. So first of all, what is stateless? Like JSON Web Token, a self-contained token used to authenticate user without storing the session on the server. That means everything is token. We don't need to worry about storing anything on the server. It is stateless. That means we are not storing the state on the server. And you know JWT token contains header, payload and signature. Header is like algorithm, payload is the data and the claim, signature is like token integrity. And JWT signed with RSA and all these algorithm. And the token, now how this token will be stored at the client side? You can store it in the local storage, session storage, or maybe exchange it in the cookies. So how this stateless authentication works? User logs in, you get a token, server generates a token and sends the token back to the client. Client store the token in the local storage and cookies. Then client include those JWT tokens in the subsequent request in the authorization header or in the cookies. Server verifies the JWT signature and grants. Okay, everything is good. Now I give you the access. Now let's talk about advantage. It is scalable, no need to store the session. It can be used in distributed environment. Because we are not storing it in the Redis or database, so it can be used across multiple microservices. Faster authentication, works well with the microservices in distributed architecture, can be used for single page application. Now, choosing the right approach. You can use a session based or JWT token based authentication. But if you compare both the things, like session based, easy to delete a session. In token based, no, you cannot, because once token is generated, you need to implement a mechanism to blacklist a token. Session based authentication is based for web application and monolith. Token based are good for microservices, Lambda, and single page application or multiple services. Performance for session is slower, but token is faster because it is self-contained token. Security, session based are more secure, you can say, and token based are prone to XSS and CSRF attack, because if somebody steal the token, they can access the APIs. So this is the major difference between stateless and a stateful authentication, where we compared a session based authentication and token based authentication.